Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into one of the most influential finance books ever written, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to break down the core ideas that have totally changed how millions of people think about money.
Okay, so the whole book, right, it really hangs on this massive contrast in advice Robert Kiyosaki got from his two father figures. On one side, you've got his highly educated, poor dad, who was all about job security. And on the other, his street-smart, entrepreneurial, rich dad, who was all about financial freedom. It's that classic clash. Should you work for a company, or should you work to own the company? So where does this all start? Well, picture this. Robert's just a 9-year-old kid, and he's tired of being the poor kid. He decides he wants to learn how to get rich, so his rich dad agrees to teach him. But not in some stuffy classroom. Oh no, this lesson was going to come from real-world experience. And let me tell you, his first job was a total grind. We're talking mind-numbingly boring stuff. Dusting canned goods in a little supermarket for a measly 10 cents an hour. After 3 weeks of this, he'd made barely enough to buy a few comic books. He was angry, he was frustrated, and honestly, he felt like a slave. But that feeling, that was the whole point. This was the first lesson. When he finally confronted Rich Dad, he was told that this feeling, this push, was life's greatest teacher. Rich Dad explained that most people just let life push them around. They're totally controlled by their emotions, especially the fear of not having money and the desire, for a bigger paycheck. And that right there, that's the trap he famously calls the rat race. See, the fear of being broke makes you work hard. But then you get that paycheck and desire kicks in. You start thinking of all the cool things you can buy. That leads to needing more money, which of course means working even harder. And the cycle just keeps going. Escaping this loop is the absolute first step to building real wealth. Okay, so if that's the trap, how in the world do you get out? Well, Rich Dad's secret wasn't some crazy, complicated formula. It was actually a really simple but incredibly powerful shift in how you see things, and it all starts with one core rule. And the rule is dead simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket, even when you're not actively working. Think about a rental property that brings in cash every month, or stocks that pay you dividends. It's all about having your money work for you, creating what they call positive cash flow. Now, on the flip side, a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. This is stuff like your car loan, your credit card debt, and here's the one that gets everybody talking, even the house you live in. Why? Because you're constantly paying the mortgage, taxes, and repairs. So here's the big takeaway. The rich spend their lives acquiring assets, while most other people spend their money on liabilities that they think are assets. So the whole game is to buy and build up a column of real assets, just like these. And the end goal? It's actually really simple. You want the income coming in from your assets to cover all of your expenses. Once your asset income is greater than your expenses, guess what? You're financially free. You want to see a perfect example of this in action? Look no further than Ray Kroc, the guy behind McDonald's. He once asked a group of students what business he was in. Of course, they all laughed and said, "You sell hamburgers." But he said, "No, my business is real estate." See, his profession was selling hamburger franchises, but his real wealth-building activity, his actual business, was grabbing all the valuable land underneath each one. He was minding his own business by building his asset column. Okay, so knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, that's actually the easy part. The real battle, the one that really matters, is all in your head. It's about overcoming the psychological hurdles that stop most of us from ever getting started. The book points out 4 huge mental roadblocks that trip most of us up. First, there's the paralyzing fear of losing money. It makes us play not to lose instead of playing to win. Then you have cynicism, that little voice of doubt that talks you out of every single opportunity. There's also just plain laziness, that feeling of, I'll do it tomorrow. And finally, there are those bad habits, like paying all your bills first and leaving absolutely nothing for your own investments. So when it comes to laziness, Rich Dad's cure is, well, it's pretty surprising. It's almost controversial, and it definitely goes against the grain of what we're usually taught. So what is it? A little greed. Yeah, you heard that right. Now, you can think of it as a healthy desire for a better life. It's that desire that actually motivates us to get off the couch and find solutions, instead of just making excuses. It's the drive that makes us want something better and start figuring out how to actually get it. And that really brings us to the core lesson of the entire book. It's all about this tiny but powerful shift in your thinking. See, saying I can't afford it is a statement. It shuts your brain down. But asking, how can I afford it?
Well, that's a question. It opens up a whole world of possibilities. It forces your brain to get creative, to start problem solving, and to find a way to win. So the question to leave you with is this: are you asking the questions that open doors, or are you making the statements that slam them shut?